Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive. Today, we're going to be looking at, well, medical identity theft. And we've got some excerpts here that lay out really the whole issue. And I got to say, this goes way beyond, just someone using your insurance card to get a free checkup or something.
Mhm.
We're talking about some serious consequences for your health, your finances, even your medical records. It can get scary. So let's break it all down with our expert, Seft.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. This is something that really flies under the radar. But the implications can be really significant. The thing is, medical identity theft isn't quite the same as general identity theft. It's not always about, draining your bank account. It's specifically about someone stealing your personal health information and then using it for their own gain, whether that's to get medical treatment or prescriptions or even committing insurance fraud, all under your name.
Okay, that's already making me nervous. So let's get right to it. Why should we be worried about this?
Well, think about it this way. Someone uses your information too. Let's say you get treatment for a chronic condition that you don't actually have. Now that fraudulent information becomes part of your permanent medical record. And so down the line, you see a new doctor, they're looking at this inaccurate history, and they might misdiagnose you, prescribe medication that interacts badly with your actual health conditions. The consequences can be really serious, and you might not even realize what's happening.
Wow, so this is much bigger than just, someone getting a few free doctor visits with your insurance card.
Yeah.
It's like a ripple effect that can impact your healthcare for years to come. And the source we have here, it even mentions a real case of this happening. A woman in Florida had surgery she didn't need
Yeah.
because of fraudulent entries in her medical file. And it took her years to get her records straightened out.
Exactly. And it's not just the health implications either. Think about the impact on your insurance premiums. They could skyrocket because of all these phantom claims being filed under your name. And then there's the potential hit to your credit score, which can affect everything from getting a loan to renting an apartment. Cleaning up this mess can be a nightmare, and it can take years to fully recover.
Okay, I'm officially creeped out. I need to know how people are pulling this off. Is it like super high-tech hacking? Or is this something that could happen to anyone?
Well, unfortunately, it's a lot more commonplace than you might think. The reality is that medical identity theft can happen in a lot of different ways. Some are more sophisticated than others, but they all boil down to someone gaining unauthorized access to your personal health information.
And our source lays out some pretty disturbing scenarios. They talk about data breaches, which apparently hospitals are prime targets for. Phishing scams where people are tricked into giving away their information. Stolen documents. They even mentioned dumpster diving.
It's amazing what people will do right. But you'd be surprised how often something as simple as losing your wallet at the doctor's office can lead to medical identity theft. That's all it takes for someone to find your insurance card and start using your information.
You're telling me.
Yeah.
So what about these data breaches? I mean, how are hospitals getting hacked? That just sounds so sophisticated and scary.
Well, you see, hospitals are treasure troves of sensitive data, and some of their security systems are, shall we say, not as robust as they could be. They often have a huge network of computers and devices, and if any one of those has a vulnerability, it can be an entry point for hackers. It could be something as simple as an employee clicking on a phishing link in an email, or a software flaw that hasn't been patched. And once they're in, these hackers can steal thousands of patient records in an instant.
Wait, so you're saying that my medical information might be at risk, even if I'm super careful with my own stuff, just because the hospital security isn't up to par?
That's the scary truth. It's why it's so important to be aware of the risks and take steps to protect yourself, both online and offline.
Okay, let's get into that. What are some of the red flags we should be looking out for? And how can we actually protect ourselves from becoming victims?
Well, the first line of defense is always awareness. You have to be vigilant about protecting your personal information, both online and in the real world. A good place to start is being mindful of what you share online. Think twice before filling out those online surveys that ask about your health history, or clicking on links in emails that seem, even remotely suspicious. And those free health apps that want access to all your data, yeah, those can be a bit risky too. Make sure you really trust a source before handing over any of your medical info.
So basically, don't be so quick to click accept on every pop-up and form we see.
Right.
But what about the stuff we get in the mail?
Ah, yes, the physical world. The source actually really emphasized the importance of shredding documents. We're talking anything with your medical information. Insurance details, even those prescription labels, don't just toss them in the recycling bin. Shred them to make sure no one can piece together your info.
Okay, I'm getting the picture. Be mindful. Online. Shred everything. Got it. Anything else we should be watching out for?
Absolutely. This might sound obvious, but keep a close eye on your medical bills and insurance statements. Look for any procedures, prescriptions, or doctor visits that you don't recognize. And don't forget about your credit report. Check it regularly for any suspicious activity.
So we're basically playing detective with our own medical and financial information.
You got it. Catching those red flags early can make a huge difference. And here's another proactive step. Request a copy of your medical records at least once a year. That way you can see exactly what's in there and flag any discrepancies.
That's a good tip. I'm adding that to my to-do list. But let's be real, even with all these precautions, it feels like there are so many ways our information can be compromised. It's like trying to plug a leaky boat with 1,000 holes.
I understand the feeling. But there are a few more things you can do to, reinforce that boat, so to speak. For starters, make sure you're using strong, unique passwords for all your online accounts, especially those related to healthcare, and enable two-factor authentication whenever it's available. It adds that extra layer of security to make sure it's really you accessing your accounts.
Makes sense. And speaking of online security, what about those public Wi-Fi networks? I always get a little nervous connecting at the doctor's office or the hospital.
You're right to be cautious. Those public Wi-Fi networks can be pretty risky. You never know who else is lurking on that network, potentially snooping on your traffic. It's best to avoid accessing sensitive information like your health records or banking details when connected to public Wi-Fi. If you absolutely must use it, consider using a VPN for an added layer of security.
Okay, good to know. I'm making a mental note to stay off social media the next time I'm at the hospital. But let's face it, even with all our best efforts, sometimes things slip through the cracks. So what happens if, despite all these precautions, we become victims of medical identity theft? What should we do?
First of all, don't panic. It's a stressful situation. But acting quickly can help minimize the damage. The first and most important step is to alert your healthcare provider. Let them know that your identity has been compromised, and provide them with as much detail as possible about what you know.
So we're talking about a doctor's office, any specialists we see, hospitals we've been to, anyone who might have our medical records.
Exactly. You want to make sure they're aware of the situation and can take steps to correct any inaccurate information in your medical file. Because remember that false information can have real consequences down the line.
Okay, so healthcare provider, check.
Yeah.
Who else needs to be in the loop?
Next up is your health insurance company. Report the fraud to them immediately and ask about any protective measures they can offer. They might be able to put a temporary freeze on your account or issue you a new identification number.
Makes sense. So we've got the healthcare provider, the insurance company. Who else needs to get a phone call?
Well, it's also important to file a report with the Federal Trade Commission, or FTC. They have a dedicated identity theft reporting system that can guide you through the process.
And the FTC report helps with tracking the fraud, right? But what about actually catching the criminals? Do we need to get the police involved?
Absolutely. Filing a police report, especially if there are fraudulent charges or medical treatments recorded in your name, is crucial. It creates a paper trail and can help law enforcement investigate the case.
Wow, so we're talking about a multi-pronged approach here. Contacting healthcare providers, insurance companies, the FTC, and the police.
That's right. And don't forget about those credit reporting agencies. You can set up a fraud alert on your credit report, which notifies potential creditors that your identity has been stolen. It's another layer of protection to prevent further damage.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, from prevention to damage control. But honestly, it's a lot to keep track of. Is there anything else we should keep in mind as we navigate this complex world of medical identity theft?
The biggest thing to remember is that knowledge really is power in this situation. The more you understand about medical identity theft, the better equipped you'll be to protect yourself. Don't be afraid to ask questions, whether it's clarifying something on a medical bill or pushing your healthcare providers about their security practices. It's your data, and you have the right to know how it's being protected.
That's a great point. We often just assume our information is safe. But we need to be proactive about our own data security.
Exactly. And remember, this isn't a static issue. The methods of identity theft are constantly evolving as technology advances. New scams pop up all the time, and criminals are getting more sophisticated. So staying informed and up to date on the latest threats and prevention strategies is really important.
It's like a never-ending game of cat and mouse.
You could say that, but that's why we're here, to help you stay ahead of the game.
Well said. We've only scratched the surface today, but I think we've given our listeners a good understanding of just how complex and far-reaching this issue is.
I hope so. Awareness is the first step toward protection.
Absolutely. And if this deep dive has made you want to learn more, There are a ton of resources available online. The FTC website is a great place to start. And remember, knowledge is most powerful when it's shared. If you found this episode helpful, tell a friend, a family member. Spread the word and help protect the people you care about.
Couldn't agree more. We all need to look out for each other.
Well said. And on that note, I think it's time for us to wrap things up.
Until next time.
Stay curious, stay informed, and dive deep.